Thank you, worship team. That was a rousing last song. I can't sing that high anymore. I don't try. Today we're going to be looking at the end of John 4, coupled with the beginning of John 5, and they're both about healing. And I'd like to start with this intro. Many of you know I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and as a boy and a young man, I became intrigued by news of a famous faith healer preaching in Oklahoma. His name was Oral Roberts. He was came from Ada, Oklahoma, from very poor parents. Eventually joined the Pentecostal movement and became a preacher. He preached that he had a revelation from God who gave him the gift of healing and told him to use it along with bringing the gospel and start a revival in the Christian faith. And he became a very popular speaker in Oklahoma. Most of his revivals were tent affairs, big tent revivals. And so he became pretty popular, and he became so popular he began spreading across the country and even preached in foreign lands as well. There were many testimonies from healed people. He established Oral Roberts Evangelistic Association in the 40s and spread the gospel around the country and the 50s, around the country and abroad as well. He was at the forefront of the prosperity gospel movement during this period. Eventually, he established Oral Roberts University, along with a hospital and medical school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He continued making news when he declared during one fundraiser in the 80s that God told him he must raise $8 million over a specific time or God would take him home. You know what that means, right? He received a lot of publicity in Oklahoma, and most people I knew, including Christians, were skeptical about his fundraising methods and his healing ministry. I'm not sure how I feel about his ministries now. I do know it was reported that when he passed, his family inherited millions of dollars in his estate. So he was born in poverty and died a millionaire. He made out very well in his preaching. I'm not sure whether his efforts actually helped to grow God's kingdom or diminish it. But there's a university standing with his name and a medical school. So I'm not the judge. I imagine there's a lot of good and maybe some not so good. There's still a lot of strong negative feelings among Christians today as a result of the health, wealth gospel that he promoted, and a continuing skepticism about prayer for healing in our day. So I think I've shared this because there remains a skepticism about healing whenever you hear about a faith healer or a healing in church. And I think some of that is his legacy, at least. Today we're going to look at two passages that involve healing and look at two stories. So Jesus, we know, did a lot of healing in his ministry, a lot of healing. And these are two remarkable ones, and we'll talk about why they're remarkable as we go along. So if you want to turn to John 4:43, you can follow. And there's Oral Roberts. Should have had that up there when I was talking, but anyway. Therefore, he came again to Cana of Galilee, where he had made the water into wine, and there was a royal official whose son was sick at Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea into Galilee, he went to him, began asking him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Then Jesus said to him, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe." The royal official said to him, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Jesus said to him, Go, your son is alive." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went home. As he was going down, his slaves met him, saying that his son was alive. That's not moving. There. So he inquired of them the hour when he began to get better. Then they said to him, yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. So the father knew that it was at that hour in which Jesus said to him, your son is alive. And he himself believed, and his entire household. This is again a second sign that Jesus performed when he had come from Judea into Galilee. The context here is that Jesus is returning to Cana in Galilee after visiting Jerusalem for Passover, coming through Samaria, where he met the woman at the well. And we talked about that last time. Remember, John called the water to wine miracle the first sign. The first sign. This he's calling the second sign, this healing. And the healing is remarkable for several reasons. First of all, the person asking is a Gentile prince. We've already discussed that Jews don't have anything to do with Gentiles. This was pretty early in his ministry. In fact, there's one passage of, I think, a Samaritan begging for his healing, and he said something like, dog, go away, dog, or something like that. And I digress a little bit. But he did actually heal in that situation too. But we know he ministered to the woman at the well. Now there was no healing there. There was no healing, but he was reaching out to the Samaritans in that. And he reached out to this prince in this case as well. So that was violating basically his culture. That was the first outstanding thing. He went against culture. Secondly, the miracle was performed at a distance. In almost all the instances that it talks about Jesus healing, there was some physical contact involved. Not necessarily everyone. The one coming up was the same way. He didn't touch him. But in like the leper, he'd make a little mud pack and put them on the eyes, etc. So usually there was some touching involved. This miracle was performed at a distance. He just gave the word. Okay, so when he declared the boy healed, the prince believed. And his faith was verified when he found his son was healed at the same hour that Jesus declared him healed. As a result of this, his whole family came to know the Lord. His whole family came to believe in Jesus. You may recall a similar story in Matthew. In Matthew 8, this healing occurred in Capernaum, and it was a Roman centurion requested Jesus heal a servant of his. And again, he said, he just say the word. I'm a soldier. I tell people what to do, and they do it. And so just say the word. And Jesus did. He said the word, and the servant was healed. And as a result, that centurion's whole family came to know the Lord as well. So those are instances. This healing is remarkable for all of those things. It was at a distance, and the whole family came to know the Lord as a result of that healing. And they were all Gentiles as well. They were all Gentiles. Now the second healing, let's look at the second healing. Let's go to John 5, 1 through 15. Oh, I guess I had it. Okay. Now after these things, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, there's a pool, which in Hebrew is called Bethesda, having 5 porticos. In these porticos lay a multitude of those who were sick, blind, limping, or paralyzed. Now a man was there who had been ill for 38 years. So he inquired of them the hour. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I went backwards. Sorry. There. Jesus, upon seeing this man lying there and knowing that he had already been in that condition for a long time, said to him, "Do you want to get well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your pallet and walk." Immediately the man became well and picked up his pallet and began to walk. Now it was a Sabbath on that day, so the Jews were saying to the man who was cured, "It is a Sabbath. It's not permissible for you to carry that pallet, your pallet." But he answered him, "He who made me well was the one who said to me, 'Pick up your pallet and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Pick it up and walk'?" But the man who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had slipped away while there was a crowd in that place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said, "Behold, you've become well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing worse happens to you." The man went away and informed the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. For this reason, the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But he answered them, "My Father's working until now, and I myself am working. For this reason, therefore, Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because he not only was breaking the Sabbath, but also calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God." This healing took place then in Jerusalem. So a little time has passed. It takes a little while to walk from Capernaum, Cana to Jerusalem. And I think most of us are pretty familiar with this healing as well. It's a pretty famous one. John talks about the specific pool, Bethesda, which is known for its healing powers. And many people were lying there beside the waters. The story was that an angel stirred it up once in a while, and the first one in gets healed. So many people were lying around the pool, waiting for that water to be stirred up so they could get in there. But Jesus goes specifically to one person. And we don't know what the name of the person is. It's not noted in the Bible. But we know he's been there for 38 years. So this is a long time cripple. He's been there a very long time. And he's been trying to get in the pool for a very long time as well. So what's the first question that Jesus asked this man? He says, Do you want to get healed? Now, how would you feel if you were laying there? You've been there year after year after year. What do you think I'm doing here? Well, you'd think it would be self-evident, but apparently not in this man's case. He'd been doing it so long. This was his life. This was his entire life, laying by the pool, getting served by people. He wasn't dying or anything, so obviously people were serving him, bringing food, carrying him around. So, if you had a life like that, you might not want to give it up. And so he just asked him, do you want to continue this lifestyle or not? Would you like to be healed so that you can begin helping yourself and maybe helping others? Was the question. Well, apparently he said yes. And so Jesus healed him. And again, he didn't touch him. We're not told whether he touched him or not. He apparently did not. And he just said, take up your bed and walk. And so with that word, he was healed. He picked his bed up and he began walking out of there. The Chosen has a rendition of this. We saw it not too long ago. He got pretty excited. They showed him being quite excited. And of course, one would be excited because you're starting a brand new lifestyle, one in which you actually can walk around and serve yourself. I'm going to suggest something here. The text doesn't say it specifically, but I'm going to suggest that he chose this cripple, laying on the bed for a specific purpose. he said, get up and carry your pallet out of here. He did this on the Sabbath. Of course, he was quite cognizant it was a Sabbath. All Jews are. You don't work on the Sabbath. Jesus knew that he was ordering this man to work. He was telling him to work. Pick up your pallet and walk. That's work. Okay? So what do I assume from this? He was going to challenge the Pharisees. He was going to challenge the Pharisees with this miracle. Were any others mentioned to be healed around this pool? No, none. Supposedly they were all there to be healed. So who does God heal anyway? Who does God heal? Everybody who needs it? Just those followers? Just his own followers or future followers? Well, there's some mystery to it, to me and maybe others as well. But what I've noted as I've studied the Bible is that healings usually happen when God's glory gets expanded into this realm. When God's glory gets expanded. When does that happen? It happens every time a new believer is made. God's glory gets extended into this realm. In this case, I'm suggesting that God was beginning to create a controversy with the Pharisees. Jesus knew this had to happen at some time or another. He knew it had to happen. And this was the start of it. The Pharisees were livid about this behavior, and they sought to kill him. For telling the man to walk and work and go against their laws. This was not the law of Moses that he was going against now. This was the Pharisees' law. Okay? The heads they put around the law. He wasn't going against anything said in the Bible. But they were livid. And because he was directly challenging that, plus he was, they said, calling God Father and making himself equal to God. We know that it was God's plan for Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. That had to happen some way. And this is the way God had in mind. Interesting that Jesus, you noted that he confronted the man that he healed later and said, quit your sinning. What was his sin? Well, he accused Jesus of making him do this. You told me to do it, to go against these Pharisees. And so that was what he was getting on to him for. Which was not a sin. It was not a sin to carry his pallet. And it certainly wasn't a sin for him to be healed. So it seems like God heals for different reasons at different times to carry out his plan. I've found that we've just got to trust that he knows what he's doing. He's a sovereign God. He heals at different times for different reasons. One thing I do believe sincerely is that when we ask for healing, when we sincerely ask for healing, he will always answer that prayer. Always. But not necessarily in the way that we desire. Not necessarily in the way we desire. He is always ready to heal. But there are more profound healings than physical. More profound healings than physical. Can you believe that? Yes, there are, for sure. When I came to the Lord, that was my most profound healing ever in my life, when I came to him. Many of us need emotional and spiritual healing more than we need physical healing. Simply, we just need it more. And that's really what God's after. He's after spiritual healing. That's really what He's after. That's eternal. That's eternal, isn't it? After this healing, Jesus became a target for the Pharisees. And it started the process of persecution and prosecution by the rulers of Israel. They finally decided He must be sacrificed for the good of the nation. Of course, we know in retrospect, they were dead wrong, because their nation was destroyed completely by the Romans in 64 AD. Not their race, but their nation. And it did not re-arise till 1948, nearly 2,000 years later. It was evident that God was using this group of rulers to facilitate His plan for salvation. So that brings the question I want to ask today. Do you need healing today? Any of us need healing today. God is here and available. Yes, there's been misuse of that gift, but it still is a spiritual gift. Healing is a spiritual gift. And some people, I believe, have it. Some people have it. But I also think that God can work healing through any person. It doesn't even have to be any intermediary. A few years ago, I injured my back helping some of my family move from one house to another. I developed chronic low back pain. Some months after this, I attended a church conference, and they had a healing prayer meeting that I attended. This was not Pentecostals. It was actually a very conservative group. I won't say which one. Very conservative. They laid hands on me and prayed, and I believed in the outcome of their prayers. The healing did not come right away. I've shared this testimony, I think, at least once or more from this pulpit. Healing did not come right away, but it did come over a period of time of several months. And within several months, I'd say 3 or 4, no more low back pain at all. None. So I believe He answered my prayer in the way I asked. He doesn't always answer in the way that you expect. But He's always been a comfort in my life in very difficult circumstances. And I know most of you found this to be true also. Today, we're going to have a time set aside for prayer. Prayer for healing. Any situation you have in your life, physical, emotional, spiritual, any situation you feel like you need help with. And we're going to have the worship team come up, and we're going to play a little music first, start their song, and join in. If you need prayer, sit down and raise your hand or get somebody's attention, and people around you will surround you and pray for you about this issue. Okay? If you would like to stand.